Hi, I'm Richard Bounds. I'm hosting today's edition of Funnel Vision. I'm joined today by Dan Wardle, a founder himself and also the driving force behind the Founder Sales Club. We have a really fascinating conversation. We talk about the intersection between sales and AI, Medic, not just its use, but also how to ensure adoption and how tech can support that. And also, critically, some great quotes, including my favourite, Death of the C Player. To find out more, watch today's episode. Thank you. Yeah, hi Dan, good afternoon. Really good to speak to you today. How are you doing?
Hey Richard, I'm well, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Fantastic. No, thank you for joining us on Funnel Vision, a new podcast that we're launching, talking about kind of all things sales and AI and where the two join together. Great to have you on as a guest. I think you've obviously got a really interesting background. I can see you obviously spent some time teaching and even teacher leadership, but then moved into sales and now started two really interesting businesses of your own. Could you maybe just elaborate a little bit more on what you're doing now for us, Dan?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, like you said, it's a bit of a interesting journey, I guess, from teaching, education, content creation, selling, technical training, and kind of being part of a great kind of journey from seed to unicorn, and then setting up my own businesses. So now I have two businesses. One's called Rampart, and we focus on mainly medic transformations for established sales teams, and the other is the Founder Sales Club. And for those of you watching, you'll see the logo on screen. The Founder Sales Club, which is a training program and community I've built for early stage founders, teaching them the art and science of founder-led sales.
Okay, really cool. And a couple of quick questions on that. So medic transformations.
Yeah.
Like, what does that entail? Because I know obviously it's not just training, but what's the kind of the key parts of a medic transformation?
Well, to be honest, I think a lot of the sales leaders who I work with are looking to install value selling, and usually medic is the solution to the problem that they have. And the problem they often come to me with is average order size, moving into enterprise, moving up the kind of value chain, and recognizing they need to have a different type of conversation in order to grow that deal size. Sometimes it's forecast slippage, and how do we maintain forecast because we've got new investors and we need to make sure that forecast isn't slipping. And medic is many things, but one of the things it is an indicator of risk to help mitigate against forecast slippage. The other thing it is kind of qualification framework and rubric for managing deals to ensure that we're finding the right people, we're speaking to the challenges that tie us into their strategy and hope to grow average deal size.
Okay. And is there much overlap with the training and education you're doing with Founder Sales Club as well? Because it's similar challenge, isn't it, in terms of deal sizes, velocity, etc.
Absolutely, yeah. So what we've done with the Founder Sales Club is strip back a lot of the medic methodology, clear out a lot of the jargon and kind of sales chat, and just give often technical founders that simple framework rooted in IQ, EQ, empathy, curiosity, logic, to go out, find those first deals or grow those deals or kind of accelerate to their next round of funding if they've already closed some deals. We've got two different programs, one aimed at those just getting started and one aimed at those really looking to put their foot down when it comes to selling and recognizing that sales and fundraising and product development all go hand in hand.
Yeah. Okay. It sounds like you're working with companies at a really interesting time in both businesses. So it's very, very cool.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. I'm guessing from your perspective, the biggest kind of career milestones to date have been that leap to go out on your own, or am I missing something there that you'd classify as your kind of most significant career step so far?
So certainly getting the role at Multiverse was pretty big, and the leadership team that they brought in there when I was selling, that was an absolute game changer and has changed my life for the better in a million ways and set me on this path. You say a leap. I kind of fell into starting my own business. I'd left a role and was kind of looking for a new one. I'd interviewed at a few places and nothing really, the thing is, when you've worked at a place like Multiverse, your standards are so high for what a great opportunity looks like that I was really picky. And I picked up a couple of consulting gigs, medic kind of training, design and deliver gigs, and just thought, well, why, if there's nothing out there that really grabs me, I really enjoy doing this and I'm working 2 days a week, why wouldn't I just do this? And then that started going well. I started getting more clients, and now I'm working 7 days a week.
I was just about to say, I don't think you'll be working 2 days a week now. So
No,
yeah.
it's really kicked on. But and then the Founder Sales Club was, something that I started working with founders, coaching founders on accelerators. I coach founders, early stage founders on the Harvard Business School MBA program as well, and found that a lot of founders couldn't afford my day rate, and often had very similar challenges to early stage sales reps who I was coaching as part of Rampart, but had that real kind of drive around, if we don't make these sales, the business won't exist, we won't get fundraising, etc. And I just loved working with founders. So I kind of designed a training program, and now it's kind of taken off and we're doing quite well. We've got like 60 members. We're on our 4th or 5th cohort now. And we've got quite a few people paying for one-to-one coaching from the coaches that I've trained and then hired. So it's starting to, I'm an accidental founder, but I'm absolutely loving it.
A happy accidental founder.
Yeah,
perhaps.
absolutely.
So, yeah. And it's a great combination of the teaching as well as teaching skills with sales skills as well, isn't it? So you're in a fortunate position. I was going to be a PE teacher as well, but I know that you said you were a PE teacher, but I kind of never followed through on that. I just went straight into sales. But there we go. Obviously, lots changed. Even when you joined Multiverse, and obviously now working with a lot of smaller companies with founders for early stage, etc. What kind of like the biggest challenges that you see that are consistent across like all of them, particularly today?
Well, I think it's when I was at Multiverse, we were selling technical training, and one of the biggest challenges there, away from sales teams, was people spending lots of money on technology, changing their processes to fit this new technology, but then not enabling and empowering their teams to make the most out of it. And we were selling a lot of technical training off the back of that. And really all I've done is kind of port that approach over to sales, because one of the biggest challenges I see is all of this fantastic technology out there. We know we should be doing something with it as sales leaders, but giving clear clarity over, well, what is it that we're actually trying to achieve with this tool as a solution? Yeah. And what's the best practice in the way that we use it, and how can we enable our teams to use it? So I think one of the biggest challenges is clarity on the skills required in the age of AI, and as well as the enablement to empower people to use the tools as well.
Okay. No, cool. That's a nice segue, because I was going to just kind of query like what new technologies are you seeing that are helping sellers, and maybe those that are not helping. But
so I think if I talk about the two people that I tend to work with, you've got founders on one side and kind of AEs and sales teams on another. From the founder side, the automation of outbound for time poor founders is great, but it is, on the other hand, contributing to that arms race between cold outbound and the kind of Gmails and Microsofts of this world trying to reduce, increase spam filters and stop, spam. So you've got that on one side. I've seen that as quite a good use case. On the AE side and kind of established sales team side, especially for enterprise selling, the research, I used to spend evenings doing like PG research, new business meeting research. Now that can be done at a click of a button. But I do think the common challenge amongst both of those is people not engaging their brain and just relying on the tool to do the work. And either that means we get kind of mass automated, not personalized, sloppy outreach, or founders who think, oh, well, I've done outreach, so I'll just click the button and it's done. I don't need to think about it. And then on the AE side, kind of doing research for calls, but not really simplifying it, not understanding it, so they can't use it to do proper discovery. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm here in terms of what you're saying there, in terms of the outreach, rather than just create more noise, just make you sure that you're using your intelligence to apply kind of quality and personalization still, and don't consider it like a tick in the box. And in terms of the research, train models, etc., to do exactly what you need them to do. Is that kind of a fair?
It is, yeah, it's training the models, sure, but you still, if you're going to have a salesperson on the call speaking, if you've done research, but it's actually the AI that's done the research, you haven't done the thinking about what questions you need to ask, and ultimately you're selling to a person. So even if the AI tells you what questions to ask, once the rubber hits the road, everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth, and you go and speak to a prospect and they give you a response. Well, the AI's not going to tell you immediately how to handle that, or what follow-up question you should ask to dig into. I know that obviously tools like Curvo can do live deal coaching, but they're not going to have the conversation for you. And so, yes, use the tool to do the research, but you need to read it, simplify it, understand it, and actually ingest it so that you can have a meaningful conversation.
Okay. Yeah, understand. And are they the sort of the main and best use cases that you've seen in sort of practical implementations of the outbound, the research, but the applied intelligence, particularly to the kind of the research and the prompting type aspects?
Yeah, I think so. And then obviously, again, talking about Curvo, you've got the taking away a lot of the run rate, low level deal analysis, to free up managers and reps to focus on the more complex deals that do need the human eye over them, but making sure that we're, using AI and tools to make sure we're sticking on our playbook at those smaller run rate deals. So it means that, managers, leaders don't need to be in the weeds with absolutely every single deal. They can focus on common skills challenges, or those big deals that give the biggest risk and opportunity in their pipeline.
Yeah, no, cool. And we should say as well that we met because we were both helping Curvo, and we're both obviously passionate about that. But we're trying to talk about obviously everything around AI and sales as well on the back of that. But thinking about like toolkits and so on as well. So like it used to be that you're a new seller, you get your LinkedIn Sales Navigator, you obviously get access to CRM, maybe the sort of the e-learning type tool. But what does that kind of toolkit consist of now for you and the companies you're working with?
Well, for my own business, I'm very fortunate in that I'm a one-man band on the Rampart side of things, and I've grown entirely by referral and inbound. And so for small companies like the one that I run, I'm very much a believer in one problem, one solution, one customer, one channel gets you to £1 million. So I'm really trying to live that as much as I preach it, and focus entirely on the Founder Sales Club side as well, on partnerships and referrals as a kind of my route to growth. When it comes to other businesses, the businesses who I work with who are slightly later stage, it does come with a lot of enablement platforms, certainly AI-powered outbound tools and tracking tools, removing a lot of the research time, the data entry, a lot of the stuff that was taking sellers away from selling. And I think in general, we're going to see this move towards how do we maximize the time of our sellers selling, and how do we reduce the size of our sales team so that we're hiring fantastic, well-paid people who are going to keep closing and spend most of their time selling and closing higher ticket deals. And kind of, I think you will see a churn. I think you will see a churn in a lot of sales teams. I don't think a lot of sales teams need to be as big as they currently are.
Okay. Yeah, I kind of get your thing. So you think that the top performing salespeople, those that adopt and they adapt to the new methods of working, and they use that kind of intelligence to personalize their stories for the customers, and they make everything hyper relevant for their audience, and they question with deep discovery, etc., are going to be core. And then do you see kind of at the lower end, you mentioned obviously those jobs may be dissipating. Do you think some of that will be automated and AI and tech will take some of those roles, or where will they go?
I almost think of it as it's the death of the C player. Is the way that I would put it. So whereas before you might have 10 reps, 100k target, and they're all on, let's say, 60k, you might have 5 reps on a 200, 300k target, on 100k, right?
Yeah.
And you're basically saving on commission, and those people are empowered to go and sell. I think sales leaders are becoming wise to passengers in their team, and so and when you only have 6 reps, you probably only need 1 manager. You don't need 2. So how can we get those A players, maybe B players who we can coach up to be enabled with AI, so they spend most of their time selling, increase their targets, but give them all of the fantastic leads, because we know A players are more likely to close those leads and close them for larger deals, so we don't burn through our addressable market. And we have kind of slower, more predictable growth, which I think in a post-zero interest rate period is something that a lot of investors, founders, boards are looking for.
Okay, that's interesting. And do you think, in terms of like the A and B players, I know obviously like revenue and results is one mechanism, but how are you identifying those top performers versus the C players?
Well, I was always taught around ICE, ICCE, intelligence, coachability, character, and experience, with experience being, for growing companies, the least important of the 4. As long as someone's intelligent, coachable, and they've got the character and drive to want to learn and do better, then experience will come. You can teach all of those things and they'll get the experience. Whereas I think a lot of sales leaders, a lot of sales teams, they hire based on, we're in the insurance game, we can only hire people with insurance experience. We're in the training game, we can only hire people with training experience. But actually, I'd much rather hire a 23-year-old who has worked really hard, maybe run their own business, maybe they've done something else, but they're driven and intelligent and coachable and will pick up the skills and maybe come with fewer bad habits as well, and train them up and give them the experience, because a lot of enterprise and B2B, but enterprise in particular, selling is a way of thinking, not about product and depth around product expertise, but around understanding the problem that you solve and how businesses, especially large businesses, go about solving those problems. And that's true regardless of the sector you're in.
Okay. No, I'm agreeing with you, and I think like intelligence and experience, I feel are kind of more easy to assess at kind of interview or discussion stages, but the coachability and character are like always quite difficult to determine. Do you have a particular sort of technique of trying to work out if they've got the levels that you need?
So I'll start with character first.
Yeah.
People who are great, work hard and are resilient and have a drive to do great things, do that in almost every job that they have, and do that in their personal life as well. So you can do that by doing research like you would for a first meeting. You go and research this person. Are they involved in sport or in clubs? Or have they taken on leadership positions? Have they done difficult things? Have they demonstrated discipline and resilience in their personal and professional life? Have they gone through tough times? Some of the best people that I know and have worked with, didn't go to university, but they've had some, tricky times growing up, and that has built in them a drive and a resilience that cannot be faked or kind of built up any other way than going through that. So and they're smart as well, they just didn't go to university, right? So I think character you can see from research and from stories and asking questions and really understanding the whole person. For coachability, you can give them feedback on an interview and see how they deal with it.
Yeah.
Right. And you can challenge them. You can ask them to reflect, and can they do that, or do they get defensive? And by the way, when I was learning, coachability was my weakness. I'd get too defensive too quickly, and I got that feedback often. And it's something that I still have to watch out for, that coachability, flexible growth mindset. I'm prepared to own and wear that, right? That feedback thing, and going out and actively seeking feedback and delivering on it, and the humility is something that's really important. You can give feedback on a call and see how they handle it.
Yeah, no, perfect. I've done the same. I had somebody once actually asked to do it again, which I thought was a really great demonstration of coachability and willingness to learn. And I think the feedback sometimes can, I've probably given in interviews like quite blunt feedback just to see how it's handled, and probably me too, I'm a bit defensive of that. I have been in the past, so.
And you can see it as well in things like do they send a follow-up that reflects the learnings that they've learned from that interview and what the next steps are, and then on the next interview, do they make the same mistakes again, or if they tick those off and they're making other mistakes? That's the kind. I reps make mistakes, I make mistakes, leaders make mistakes. That's fine. It's, do you understand that you've made a mistake and why it's important? Do you understand what caused it? Are you acting now with urgency to make sure that doesn't happen again? Once you've achieved that, great. You've reached that level. It doesn't happen again.
Okay. And say the next like 5 years. I know no one can really foresee it that accurately, but you obviously made some predictions around the kind of the A and B players. The death of the C player, I think, is really interesting. Anything else you see as kind of core trends over the next few years, specifically around sales?
Yeah, I think on an AI and future of sales podcast, kind of one thing that I am starting to see is that with cold outbound, a lot of VC money, a lot of founders, a lot of time and effort has been spent on how do we automate and make cold email, cold calling, less so cold calling, but cold email, LinkedIn outreach, easier, more accessible, more repeatable, personalized at scale. I think as that dial starts to turn up, you will start to see fatigue amongst buyers with that. I mean, you're already seeing it. And that arms race with other providers, I can only see that going one way, and it getting more and more noisy, more and more crowded. And one thing I always talk about when I do training, that there's 4 things about people that never change. People are busy, or at least think they are. They're selfish, so they want to know what's in it for them. They're skeptical, and they change. So we need to make sure that we're always doing something that's kind of different to the market to stand out, especially if you're in a growing company. And if you're only hammering cold email, mass cold email using AI automation, you're only doing, LinkedIn automation and things like that, you're missing out on the thing that a lot of people are ignoring, getting to the prediction bit now, which is, I think many, many more people will be buying, because as sellers, we need to be where buyers are and be speaking to their habits. I think people will be buying via communities, via referrals, and via events. So, I've got a couple of clients who are in the event space. Yeah. I think that's a really exciting space. I think the community building space, buying through referrals, through trusted partners, and almost removing a lot of the outbound, because there's so much noise. It's very, very difficult to cut through, and buyers are turned off by it. They're not turned off by going and speaking to peers who are recommending and introducing and making referrals, maybe even paid and affiliate referrals, or going to a community and asking for responses. So I do see the VC money will start to turn towards communities, referrals, affiliates, even more. And that's why I built the Founder Sales Club as a community. So it becomes a place for founders to get those referrals and advice from other founders who are actually doing that.
Okay, really, really interesting. Yeah, I totally can see that happening. So where people talk about customers contacting businesses when they're 56% of the way through the buying journey, you'd almost expect they would be contacting communities, looking at referral wider groups, and then perhaps only hearing from that sellers will hear people when they're 80-90% down that decision loop. Is that sort of where
it might be. You're right, it might be that you're essentially driving inbounds, but you've got to do the work to build customers as champions. So customer success is going to be more and more important, because how do you make sure that your customers are the ones making referrals when a community is asked? Well, unless you own that community yourself. So I think we'll see a lot of companies starting to create their own communities, you see it with the likes of HubSpot, etc. already, but I think you'll see that more and more. But in more wider communities, sector-specific or role-specific communities that already exist, how do you make sure that your business is the one who's being championed in that room when you're not there? Well, it's delighting your customers and demonstrating genuine value. And that loops back to, well, has your salesperson on the land with that account really understood the metrics that these companies care for? Have they built an ROI document that promises, or expounds on this is what we're hoping to deliver. And then have you got a great service and customer success team who are helping to not only deliver on that, but shout about it and arm your champions to talk about it in a way that aligns with your brand, and funnel them towards you in the way that you want to receive those leads. So I think we talked about death of the seed layer. I think it's also the end of a free lunch a little bit as well. You can't just grow anymore based on, you can't just grow anymore when you've got poor service, the product doesn't deliver, and you're not establishing value up front and then delivering on that value. You're going to need to do that if you want to survive in a world where referrals and affiliates and partnerships and communities are going to be your main source of leads.
Okay. Interesting. And in fact, that does loop round to the medic piece. I know you're using some of the terminology there in terms of it's selling against metrics to a champion, but actually then delivering against it and making sure that everybody's aware that, what the metrics were and how you've delivered against it, and delivering against the commitment as well, isn't it? And proving that. Any advice for people kind of wanting to kind of find communities or operate in kind of more of a community type model?
I think if you're looking to create your own community, start with giving away value. And a lot of companies are just not, it's the same as selling. Give without the expectation of receiving anything. And give value, give away the shop if you have to, but in a way that engages and adds value to your ideal buyers. Go and research what it is that your ideal buyers are asking in terms of questions, and rather than in the old days of 5 years ago, it might be write a blog to capture when they type that challenge into a Google search. It's now have that as a part of your offer to your community, or have that as an event or a talk that you will be discussing with their peers, to get that answer that way. And that's how you kind of attract people into that community. So giving away value, focusing on what your customer sees as value, your ideal customer, and then giving that value via the community for free as a great way to start. The second, for existing companies to set up their community, is go and identify who already is a champion, who already is having a great experience from you. How do you incentivize and put them at the center of a community? I started the Founder Sales Club from scratch, and there were one or two founders who were more active in the community, more willing to do referrals and make introductions. So I made sure that those people were getting even more value from me. They were getting more time to encourage and engage. There's nothing worse than a community where no one's talking. So who are those people naturally inclined to lead conversations, and who are those that occasionally get involved that we can then go and reach out to and encourage them to get involved more by supporting them?
Okay, brilliant. Thank you, Dan. I think I've got a couple of bigger questions, but I feel a couple of them that I had in mind you've kind of covered a little bit already, in terms of maybe best practice approach that you see are having the biggest effect on sales teams. And do you think that is that kind of value-based community piece, or is there some other points you wanted to kind of pull out around that?
The main thing when I speak with founders, when I speak with sales teams, is the table stakes thing that most companies miss is they don't actually know the problem that they're solving for their customer. I know that sounds obvious, but they don't really know it. They don't know it in the language of the C-suite. They haven't thought about, okay, we're solving this technical or lower level challenge, and when we're doing discovery, we get distracted by when they say, the lower level technical challenge, and we do discovery there. But we miss the opportunities to speak the language of the C-suite, which is reducing cost, reducing risk, and increasing revenue. Very, very few sales leaders even regularly articulate to their team the cost, risk, revenue impact of their product, which is the language of the C-suite. And speaking that language is a great way to stay high in accounts, grow your deal sizes, and even shorten deal lengths at the same time. For me, it's a win-win. If you can speak that language, you get access to power, deals are bigger and often shorter, because you're able to establish and qualify quickly, are we actually going to have a meaningful impact on what senior leaders care about if we're asking the right questions?
Yeah, and even mapping that in every internal discussion you have, as well as external around the deal as well. How are you helping the customer increase revenue, reduce cost, impacting risk? Yeah, so.
Absolutely. And so most companies don't know like the long list of cost risk revenue impacts that they have. They don't know,
Yeah.
the kind of menu of things that they solve. And therefore that translates that when I do deal reviews with reps, and the first question I always ask is, what's the problem that we're solving? Always. First question.
Yeah, same.
Who's the client? Next one, what's the problem that we're solving? And the answers that I get are very technical, small, they're not linked to cost, risk and revenue. It's clear there's not been a thought about deeper level discovery, pinning the conversation to what senior leaders care about and the goals and strategic objectives of that business. And so that's why deals are small, that's why we get ghosted, it's why we get blocked out of bigger conversations with more important people who've got power and budgets to go and spend on solving those big problems. And it's also why we don't qualify out, because we don't actually ask the questions that would yield those red flags. So we end up with these zombie deals which just kind of get forecasted every month and never go anywhere.
Yeah. And is that, if you were thinking of like one big deal hack that every seller should do, is it that what's the problem we're fixing, what's the size of the problem, etc., link it back, or is there something else that you would say as your one deal hack?
Linked to that, it's always have a hypothesis.
Okay.
If it's a first meeting, have you done your research? And do you have a hypothesis of what the cost risk revenue, what their strategy is, what the cost risk revenue challenge is that you might be solving, and how you link that to your product, service, or solution? Go in with that hypothesis, have that as the first agenda point, get them to tell you where you're right, where you're wrong, where you've missed stuff, what's important, what's not important. And then the second meeting, improve on that hypothesis based on what you've heard, and that's the first agenda point in the next meeting. So focus on the problem that you're solving and linking it to their strategy and cost, risk and revenue by doing the homework first. Always better to guide and be told that you're wrong than just to ask, who cares about that? Much better to ask, usually the CTO cares about that. Is that Alex?
Yeah.
Much better to ask that question and guide and do your research first. So number one deal hack, have a hypothesis. Do your research, have a hypothesis, put that at the center of your deal, and it will uncover not only is there a problem worth solving, but are we speaking to the people who can speak that language? If not, we need to go and find people who can.
Yeah, and it gives you a bit more credibility rather than just asking questions and questions and questions, which people can get a bit tired of quite quickly, can't they?
Absolutely.
So, really
yeah. I mean,
okay.
I've had hypotheses that I've taken to calls all the way from the very, very worst that's ever happened is they've looked at it and gone, that's wrong. It's based off last year's annual report. We've got a new annual report coming out in two weeks' time. Let me tell you why it's wrong and what it actually looks like now. Great, I still get what I need. All the way through to, that's amazing. Can I have that document and share it with my team because you've put our problems better than anyone else has? Which, toot my own horn a little bit, but great, you can absolutely have that document because it's got our logo all over it.
Yeah. Okay. No, perfect. And obviously, you've got a lot of companies that are adopting AI, especially, and a lot of the founders, I guess, you're working with are coming from kind of an AI space. But if you're an organisation that's not really yet embracing AI, is there any kind of like tip that you would give to those guys that to make them maximum impact and how best they could use it? I know we touched on that a little bit at the beginning.
I mean, the first one. I'm not an expert in AI, absolutely not. But the first thing I would always look to is, what am I doing lots of that's repeatable and the same every time? That's one. Can I automate that? Can I use AI to make that done for me? The second is, don't invest before you experiment. So try out the free version of a tool, try out the kind of ChatGPT version of the tool, and then see if you want to invest if it actually does save you that time. And then the third one is probably making sure that when you do implement a tool, you're not just relying on the AI to do all of the work. If it is creating something, you've got clear goals as what it's to be used for, and then you're still making sure you've got the human eye over it, just to make sure that you understand what it is doing and why it's doing it the way that it is, so that you can have the maximum impact.
Okay, great advice. Thank you, Dan. I got two final questions. So everyone's got a favourite deal. What's your favourite deal of all time and why?
I think, I've done some kind of 6-figure, 7-figure deals. I think my favourite deal right now, though, is the one that I just did for the Founder Sales Club. We charge, for the cohort, it's £1,000 to join the cohort, or it's £1,000 a month for a one-to-one coach plus community access and all the content and stuff and events that we do. And I recently hired my first sales coach, so I'm moving into that founder role, finding, hiring and training sales coaches to do the delivery. And we recently have won our first 2 or 3 deals where it's no longer me delivering the product. We've got kind of coaches who we've brought on and trained to deliver the product. And I think the reason, when you pour your heart and soul 7 days a week into a business, to finally see that I am stepping up and slowly becoming the founder of a business, working on the business, not in the business, and that the model does work without me and it can work with other people involved. That's really gratifying because it shows, the startings of product market fit. It's starting to show that, we are offering value and that the product isn't just me and, my ability to do sales coaching. It's actually the methodology and the model, this kind of reduced, simplified version of Medic for founders that we've built, as well as the content in the community has value beyond. So I think we've won a couple of deals recently where I'm really excited because it's the green shoots of maybe a business that's going to stick around for a bit.
Excellent story. And I mean, so that shows that other people see belief in the value that you bring, and it's giving you the opportunity to scale. Sounds good value as well, Daniel. So where can people find out more about you or connect with you if they want to hear a little bit more?
Sure. Well, again, I mentioned earlier, one problem, one solution, one customer, one channel. So I am on LinkedIn, but I don't do much influencing and talking on LinkedIn because, as I said, we're going through kind of partnerships and referrals. I do a lot of speaking at events and things like that. But please do connect with me on LinkedIn. If you're interested in the Founder Sales Club, it's foundersalesclub.com. Okay,
perfect. Thank you very much for your time today, Dan. Been really good speaking with you. Some great insights, and speak again shortly.
My pleasure. Thanks, mate.
Thank you. We really hope that you've enjoyed the discussion. You can find us at curvo.ai, connect with me or Leo on LinkedIn, and we'd love to hear your insights and perspective on how you found the discussion or even your own fresh thinking on the topic. We're also looking out for future guests as well. So please get in touch and we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you. Goodbye.